And that's the fact that when you go up there now to the AMSOIL layout, so to speak, for what's there, okay? Now, for those of us that have been going up there for a number of years, it is really different. The new manufacturing plant is right at 500,000 square feet. It's a huge plant with millions of gallons of storage space for oil, high-speed controlled fill lines, mixed tanks. They have 48 different tanks that can hold mixtures ready for loading. They have automatic change systems to change the system, flush out the stuff, move. It takes them, they have 4 actual filling lines, and it takes them less than 2 hours to shift over from one product to the next. Now, when they were at the old facility, they had 1 filling line, and it took them an average of 16 hours to change from one product to the next. So this is where they have obviously, and the speed of the line, the old production line was reasonable going by. This one is high speed. Things just are whipping by. So I don't know how many hundreds of bottles per minute it can fill and package and load. It's automatic. So with all the growth in AMSOIL, they still don't have to work but a single shift 5 days a week in this plant to keep up with all the products. And as somebody just said a minute ago, oh, we got more new products. Yeah, and they fill them all in that same plant, and they keep up with it all. So they continue to grow. So the layout, the office structure is pretty close to the same that it's been for a long time. And they have a nice building in the middle of Superior where it's the headquarters. And then not too far from there, they still have at the Winter Street location, they have their Agrin fertilizer plant, which took over the old production plant for the oil products, and then the new plant is set up. Now, in the new plant, one of the things that they introduced to everybody there at the convention was that they have upgraded the chemistry lab, and they've upgraded a mechanical testing lab that they really didn't have much of before. But now it's got a dyno in it. It's got a variety of other things set up to specifically test oil to the failure point. In other words, they wanted to have the ability to run inordinate tests on their own without having to hire somebody to do it, so as they could do formula enhancements and variations depending upon the results in the mechanical test lab. So, expensive. I think Alan told us that one of the machines in the chem lab goes for a little under $100,000. So the improvement in that equipment that they have put in is because their goal is to be able to look at their oils with a fine, so to speak, a fine microscope of how well the oils perform, what they need to do to improve, so they can keep the products on the cutting edge to be as good as they can be. So they're spending some money to do this. It's not inexpensive. They got a lot of money invested in that, but they're moving it in and have that ability to test inside. They also told us that within this technical department they have what they call a technical sales department. The technical sales department is basically people from AMSOIL Design that when a dealer in some portion of the country finds himself in an opportune situation where there's a big account that he wants to get, but it's a little above his comfort level how to deal with those people, and he calls in help. Well, the technical sales department then would send somebody out from AMSOIL to assist him in acquiring this big heavy hitter account. Now, the thing to remember on that, you got to understand, is that if AMSOIL goes to that trouble to send the guy out, they're going to share in the profits. So they'll take a portion of that account's commission if they're the ones that get involved.
Half is better than nothing, though.
Half is better than nothing. But what I would say to you is that if you're in my line, call me before you do that. I'll be glad to help you. If you're in somebody else's line, call your direct jobber or your upline, because if those folks are able to help you do it, and you don't have to go to AMSOIL, and they have enough gravitas to help you get it done, then you won't be sharing any commissions. They'll all go to you. Okay, so keep that in mind before you go off to the technical sales department. I'm not saying, like Marty said, I'd be the first to tell you to do it if it meant getting a big account and you had no other resource available. But make sure that you go to your upline first and see if you can get some help. Some of these AMSOIL dealers have been at this a lot of years and have a lot of experience. So, you know, you may find somebody, if it's not your first line direct jobber, it may be the next one or the next one up, but you'll get to somebody that's probably fully capable to give you a hand before you get to AMSOIL. Oh, remember some of you guys, Tony, well, remember when AMSOIL talked about the wind turbines. This is back a while. They're going to get into the making oil for wind turbines, okay, the big electrical generating wind turbines. Well, they've pursued that, and they've worked hard at it. It's not a dealer thing. This is a corporate thing, because those generators that sit up there, on average, are well over $1 million just to get the tower erected, much less put the generator on top of it. So they're very expensive, extremely difficult lubricating regime that's set up, and you have to go back out there, usually as the sales rep for the company, climb the 200-foot tower and do oil samples and oil analysis. So there's not a lot of AMSOIL dealers, including me, that wants to climb a tower to 200
So
feet.
you're saying it's not available to us?
No, it's not available to us. But let me finish the statement. It doesn't make any difference, because what AMSOIL is finding out is that as much as effort they put into this, it's probably going to be a very low return operation. That these looks like a huge, going to be thousands, if not millions, of wind turbines going up everywhere. Well, that slowed down some, and it turns out that the amount of oil that's used, and if you develop the product, and if you get the right product in, it might be in there for 5 years. So your reorders are not hard and heavy. So it's kind of like, how much effort do you put into this thing to sell a few thousand gallons of lube oil? So the wind turbine thing, one thing it will do for AMSOIL, it gives them a quality name, because they're dealing with some very, very high order companies who, when they realize that AMSOIL is a supplier for these turbines, these big wind turbines, it sort of puts the company in a class where they're making products that are accepted by some very sophisticated engineering people. So it's good for the company, but not a lot of money.
What happens if you've got a cord to go through for that stuff?
Say that again?
I said, what happens if you have opportunities in that area?
Oh, well, AMSOIL always will pay dealers a certain amount of 3% or something for what they call a finder's fee, where you go out and find a big account that they want like that, and you bring it to them. They're going to pay you a royalty on that account.
My brother buys the power from Puget Sound Electric in Seattle. That's all he deals with is wind turbine guys.
And so there's a connection, and since if they sell enough of it, 3% for making an introduction back and forth between people is pretty good money. So,
Really?
yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, it depends. If they spend $100,000, right? You made an introduction and you get paid $3,000 a year for remembering. Who was that? How'd that happen? I can't remember. That was 8 years ago.
My brother won't even crawl.
No. All right, now industry trends were talked about. Industry trends, and one of the things that caught my eye, and Tony may remember some other things, but talked about the fact that Honda is already in Asia using a 0W16 weight oil. And so we are expecting that soon Honda will be sending those cars here and recommending a 0W16 engine oil. So AMSOIL would then expect to, somewhere in the near future, have a 0W16 synthetic oil for that application. So you're talking about getting thinner and thinner. I knew those Hondas sounded like a sewing machine, but I didn't realize they were using sewing machine oil.
Man, if you get the slightest shear back on that oil, it's over.
I'm telling you, 0W16.
I mean,
well,
what are they going to do to keep the zinc and the phosphorus doing its job?
Well, it's thin, but if you think about it, it's not that much thinner than 0W20. Just a little bit, but it's still thin oil.
Yeah, Motor Trend just did an article on the new Accord
Yeah.
with their new hybrid, 70 miles per gallon.
Which is, whose hybrid? Toyota? Or Honda
7
7?
Accord.
Yeah.
What is their point for going to such lower viscosity? Just think they're going to get more
When you, they have a thing that's referred to in lubrication of hydraulic drag is the term they use.
Okay.
And the thicker the oil, the more drag it has in a lubricating situation. So going thinner and thinner lowers this drag coefficient, which is a type of friction. And you get down to the point to where you're almost laminar, you're so thin it's almost like having a laminar surface between the two rather than an actual film. It's almost that thin. So that reduces that, what they call hydraulic drag, down to almost zero. Now they can only go so far, and they're pushing these things, but remember, in a lot of these automotive applications now, the surface of the metal, where if you were always to look at it under a microscope, you would have what looks like little peaks and valleys in the metal. It's not actually smooth, okay? But the smoother you can make it, the less friction there is. So a lot of companies now are doing things where what they do is they use a methodology of heat treating the surface so that after it runs for a little while, it's what they call hydraulically polished. The oil itself actually is taking those asperities, they're called, that sticks out, and it's blunting them down so that you go 30–40% smoother surface just by the action of the oil, in a sense, smoothing that surface, taking those highest peaks and bratting them down with hydraulic pressure, and you end up with a smoother surface. Now, in some of the NASCAR places, they've gone to ceramics because the ceramic surface can be made like 90% smooth. And so using ceramics, but not a good idea for the everyday auto application because ceramic cylindered engine might be, you know, a $40,000 block, okay, just to do that. So probably not practical for the average person to try to do that. So now, the other thing though that even is more pertinent to us, and Lee had a situation with this we'll talk about in a minute.
That got resolved.
Good, good. Well, we're going to talk about it anyway. The direct injected gasoline engines. Okay, now any of us that are familiar with diesels, direct injection's old as the hills. That's what they do. They direct inject right into the cylinder, right? Gasoline engines haven't done that. Gasoline engines have used injectors in the intake manifold, multi-port to have 8 of them for an 8-cylinder, 6, or just a single throttle body, which is nothing but a fancy carburetor because you got a throttle body jet putting it right into the intake of the manifold. But none of those into the cylinder. Well, the newest type of engine is a direct injected gasoline engine using an injection system similar to a diesel with high pressure injection right into the cylinder.
New invention, huh?
Well, what it is they've decided that if I get this now, if I turbocharge a gasoline engine and I put direct injection on it, guess what it acts like?
Yeah.
A diesel engine, except doesn't quite have the power, but it comes close. These direct injected engines, they got one in, you guys know George Douglas, my sponsor, he's got one of the pickups with the direct injected, what's it called, EcoBoost?
EcoBoost.
Yeah.
It's a Ford, yeah.
And that engine's fantastic. A gasoline engine that develops 420 foot-pounds of torque, okay, in a V6 engine. I mean, that is a powerful engine for a V6 gasoline engine. So this technology's here. It's here to stay. It's going to improve both fuel economy and towing capabilities of gasoline engines. But it's a different animal when it comes to our lubrication. Because as you know, in diesel engines, one of the things we've always rushed drove a truck. One of the things that we think about is how much fuel dilution do I have in my diesel, right? Well, guess what's happening in direct injected gasoline engines? They're getting fuel contamination in the oil. Now, not to the levels that cause it to be condemned, maybe 1%, but we've never had fuel contamination in gasoline engines. So all of a sudden you got to start to say, well, how is that going to affect my oil? Ooh. What kind of additives do I have to change and beef up in the oil? How am I going to? So what AMSOIL is telling us is don't be concerned. They're doing all the testing, all the necessary investigation for direct injected gasoline engines to determine how to modify the oil additive package to make sure that they're good to go on these gasoline direct injected engines, because they're not going to go away. They have been such a success coming in, they will probably be the mainstay of at least engines that you want to do anything. If you got a pickup truck or anything like that. And in the small cars, going to direct injected turbocharged cars, they're talking about a lot of these small gasoline cars doing 45, 50 miles per gallon. Now, the federal government says, that coming down, it's in the current Action News if you want to read it, that was it 2020, was it coming? Right around 2020 anyway, they want us to have a CAFE 45 miles, 47 to 48 miles per gallon. Now CAFE is the combined economy fleet mileage. Anyway, I didn't say that right, but it's what it is. It's the acronym for what the fleet averages that a company produces. So General Motors would have a CAFE that's required to be a certain amount. They might have some cars that do 80, some cars that do 30, but they're going to have an average of 47. The current average is 27 or 28. Okay, moving up to the next step, like 32. But as you know, anybody that's driven a car, you know there's not a lot of ways to get my Chevy Suburban to 47 miles per gallon, unless you tow it. You know, I might could tow it with another vehicle and get it to that. So what does that mean? That means smaller, lighter, turbocharged, direct injected, diesel, gasoline, hybrid, all this stuff to get there. You can't get there with regular engine technology and full-size cars. You just can't get there.
Alan presented the lubrication side of our training, and he mentioned the side effect of direct injection too is there's soot appearing.
Yes, soot and fuel contamination.
From gasoline.
From gasoline. And the reason that you would see that, remember, direct injected, I push the fuel in. Now, what makes soot, what these guys are probably suffering with right now, is we find in the diesel engine. I have to get the exact right air-fuel mixture to burn the gas completely. If it's off slightly, part of the gas doesn't burn. Unburnt gasoline is soot, just like unburned diesel is soot. So this is a computer turbo injection problem, meaning that as the companies get better, they will be working on trying to meter this to perfection.
So
obviously, they're not metering it to perfection, or they wouldn't have soot.
So the explosion point's not necessarily right yet.
Exactly. And when you look at diesels, the reason that we run diesel concentrate and cetane boost and those kind of things is timing in a diesel engine is critical to getting a good burn. In other words, when does the actual ignition take place in the diesel fuel? Does it take place as the piston's approaching the top, or after it's already got to the top and it's starting to come down? That's timing in a diesel. When does that actually light off? Well, we used to say the gasoline engine, that was all dependent upon when we did the spark, right? So we're trying to think we can do the same, but when we direct inject the fuel in and we're compressing at the same time, we're changing the point at which that fuel mixture is lighting off. And we used to do it with an advanced spark and all that kind of stuff in the old carbureted and distributor systems. But this is complex, and they're doing it all with computers, so give them a little time, they'll work it out. I'd say the first guys to have the sootless engine direct injected will probably be Honda. They seem to always be ahead of the curve. So if they got one that's 70 miles per gallon, don't doubt that it'll be sootless, you know.
Volkswagen get 52 on their TDI right now.
Oh yeah, and think of this with the other thing, and this, you know, for the dealers out there that'll look at this on the website, there's already a Volkswagen TDI that's sold in England and Europe that gets 72 miles per gallon.
That's amazing.
And there's a Ford turbo diesel in England that gets 68 miles per gallon. They haven't been allowed in the United States. Haven't been allowed here after they harp on us about fuel mileage, then they didn't allow them in the country. The reason they didn't allow them in the country is because they finally said they didn't know how they'd be able to handle that kind of impact on that reduction in fuel demand, how they'd collect enough taxes to keep the roads open. So it's not the technology or the economy of the car. It again comes down to government interference with taxes. I go higher. New products, okay? And I'm just going to tell you what these are because they're working towards them. Everybody here know the difference between an ATV and a UTV? Okay? I wasn't too familiar with that terminology, but a UTV is a utility terrain vehicle, and an ATV is an all-terrain vehicle. The utility vehicles are about twice the size of the ATVs, and the farmers and golf courses, a lot of guys are using them. They got a little truck body like on the back, and they're good little utility vehicles.
Brutes.
Yeah, they're strong little vehicles, and they're serving a good purpose all over the place, and they're expensive. And so AMSOIL said, they said at this convention that they will have some new oils or products directly labeled for the UTV market.
Brutes.
Okay? And they said they got another motorcycle oil coming. I don't know what that means. I don't know whether it's a different viscosity or whether it's designed for a different motorcycle application, because we've already got 10, 30, 10, 40, 20, 50, and 60 weight.
The Harley is using the 2050 across all three sumps.
Right, right.
And some reason, you know, in the transmission, the thing sounds like a carbonated washing machine, and they put the gear oil in. You've explained it to me, and I've explained it, and they just don't want to hear it. Put the gear oil in it.
Well, the gear oil is an option. They just say you can put the 2050 in the 3 chambers. But we will see what if this new motorcycle oil is. Now, they're going to have a real, they don't have one now, and you know this if you've been around, they're going to have a real chain lube. A real chain lube that's coming. Now, we don't really have a chain lube.
NB.
Yeah, heavy duty MP, you spray the chain, right? That's fine. Okay. But they're going to come out with a real chain lube. Okay. And then they're going to update the silicone spray. Cheers, clapped. Anybody? Okay. Just wondered if you knew we had a silicone spray. They're going to update silicone spray.
What's wrong with it now?
I don't know. Going to update it.
New label.
Get some new silicone.
New can.
New can. New can. And they're going to update the fogging oil. Not a big product for us in Florida, since we don't usually put the outboard engines up for the winter by fogging them. So, but fogging oil is in some parts of the country.
It's good for generators.
That's true. On an RV, you can lay your generator up with it. That's good. That's very good, Russ.
And even your standby generators.
Yeah. Marketing, sales, info. Now I want to take a minute here and talk about this, because this is something that affects all of us. This is a breakdown of where the sales were in the AMSOIL business, okay? The dealers, in other words, what we call the multi-level marketing side of the business, the dealers, what they bought under their dealer ZO numbers and disposed of in some manner. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. 39% of all sales in AMSOIL were bought by dealers. Now the dealers may have sold it to a retail account, I don't know. But the dealers bought 39% of the oil that AMSOIL sold. The retail on the shelf accounts bought 30.8% of the business. Here comes the one that I know Marty saw, and he told me the minute he saw it, because we should all jump on this.
Yes.
Commercial, 14.7%. We've been telling you guys at the meetings we've had for the past 2 years that the open business is in the commercial account business. It's not really being tapped. That's all the small fleets. Guys got, 5 trucks, that's fine. Guys got a lawn maintenance business with 8 trucks and 12 mowers, that's fine. That's all the commercial business. And as you can see from these numbers, it's not being worked. And let me tell you, why do you think it's not being worked?
People are afraid of them.
Somewhat.
I think it goes back to the old plan.
Well, part of that.
You make as much money on a commercial account as you do.
There's another factor though. When can you visit commercial accounts?
During the day.
During the day. How many AMSOIL dealers are part-time people with another job? Probably about 70% of the AMSOIL dealer force, right? So what it means is that for the guys that are working full-time jobs, they don't have a lot of time to go to Smokey Joe's lawn maintenance company and talk to him when he's there ready to talk to them. So what we're seeing is that unless the guys that have the full-time capability start, bird dogging some of the commercial account business, nobody's looking at it, because the guys that are working real jobs have to do what they can do. And they're lucky and quite talented if they're working a full-time job to get around to doing retail. Because retail is hard to get to, except they're open a lot of times on Saturday, so a guy can take a shot at getting in on a Saturday. But commercial accounts, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning until 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon, that's the time they're there. If you don't come to see them there, they ain't gonna meet you on Saturday or after hours. So that's the reason that number's so low. Now, a number that's actually pretty good, in my opinion, is the PC number being 12.6. because as we all know, we string PCs, we pick them up as we can get them. I love all the PCs that I can get. And those guys, once you get a guy that enjoys, he uses the product, buys maybe for a larger family, buys a few $100s worth a year, that's a great customer to have. He's just locked in, he just goes on and on and on. So the PC business is a very good revenue generator for dealers. And at 12.6%. Now, yeah.
Tell me what a PC is.
They're called preferred customers. What they do is they sign up like a dealer, but only to buy product, not to actually do the business. So they get to buy at the wholesale price, and the commission credits that a preferred customer generates go directly to the sponsoring dealer. They belong to like your personal commission.
But the way that they order,
Because online.
it directly goes to the warehouse and.
Right, yeah, you don't, if you had oil in your garage, you had a PC in your neighborhood, he'd come pick it up. But other than that, normally they just go online, buy, or they go to the warehouse and pick it up, whatever they want to do. But you don't usually have to handle their oil. They're usually buying on their own. Now, catalog customers, I was a little surprised, wasn't you, Tony? 2.3%? I'd have thought the catalog customer business would have increased a little more than being at 2.3%. That did not seem to be a real high level to me. All right, so that's the marketing trends, and the reason I wanted to go down through that is because if you know where things are happening in AMSOIL, it gives you a little bit of an idea, because, you know, my biggest mistake in the beginning in AMSOIL was to be going in all directions at the same time. I didn't know where the direction was because I was going in all directions at all time, doing what they call grabbing low-hanging fruit wherever it got in my way. Just grab it, there you go, just keep going, go. Just do it. Now, if you look at this and you think to yourself, you got a limited amount of time, you want to figure out some things to do, if you happen to think about a few of those small commercial accounts that are sitting out there that nobody's talked to, you might find that to be a very target-rich environment. Places you can go talk to. If you know your products and you talk to them about how they're going to work, you got a lot to offer them, because these guys, a lot of them, their very life of their businesses is keeping their equipment working. If it's an over-the-road trucker, he's got to keep his stuff. Oh, that reminds me, real quick, over-the-road trucker. Over-the-road trucker. I have one that began to use the new AMSOIL diesel concentrate, and he drives up into, it's a long-haul trucker. This time he was up into West Virginia and Maryland. And he didn't pay much attention because he's not the analytical type. But his wife asked him, since he started using this, what he was doing different, why he was spending so much less money on diesel. His fuel economy went up almost a mile per gallon. Okay, and the stuff really works. This guy isn't going to think his way out of too many complex situations. So to him, he used it. He took my word for it. He used it, and his wife, who's a real analytical lady who works in the bank, she looked and said, "Whatever you're doing, you need to keep doing it," because you spend a lot less money on diesel. So these additives are good products that work, and they can be, as Marty has seen, they can be your step in the door to talk to some guys with diesels. Before you ever get the oil there, you can make some contact with a good additive. And one thing on those additives, well, I'll talk about it at a different time, okay? Now, one of the things coming out from AMSOIL, I think this is a really good thing. You wouldn't know about this, but a lot of you guys are familiar with what we call the AMSWIN program in AMSOIL. It's our little program, Russ, you're very familiar with it, that we use for making orders, typing them in, doing all this kind of stuff. Well,
They killed that.
well, the program was developed by a guy named Forbes. We used to call it the Forbes program, okay? And it went along and it wasn't bad, and then it turned out that one guy died and he sold it to another guy, or the son, and he took it and ran for it a while and finally sold it to another guy. And this last guy seemed to think that it was worth a lot more than what the other guys thought, and wanted a whole lot more money for it and all kinds of stuff. Well, with a lot of coercing, believe it or not, by some of the larger AMSOIL dealers, in particular Mark and Sherry Shell. Mark just was killed in an airplane accident, terrible thing, but they pushed AMSOIL on this, and AMSOIL will be coming out in the fall with a replacement software package that replaces the AMSOIL program.
Yes.
And it will probably be operated through the dealer zone, just like where we pull down reports and so forth, where we go right into the dealer zone and make invoices and all the stuff that we want right out of a program that they're developing. Now, in reality, this was their responsibility for a long time, and they never did it.
So
So,
they're gonna charge us though.
yeah, but not what this other guy was trying to charge.
Oh, okay.
More
So-
in line with the first.
So anyway, this program, I don't know, I can only tell you we'll see stuff coming on it. It is supposed to be comprehensive, meaning that it allows us to do virtually all the functions that an AMSOIL dealer does in order to create invoices and all this kind of stuff. So let's just say that that's something the company should have got involved with their personnel a long time ago, and they were leaving a vacuum there. In fact, John and I had even contemplated trying to create a program, because John's an expert in Excel spreadsheets and stuff, so we could have made one. And then a friend of Judy's, her girlfriend has a sister who writes the apps for all these phones and stuff for big companies, and she was interested in maybe trying to crank up and do something. So there was a hole there. So it was good that AMSOIL filled it. Now let's see if they fill it right, and we can get enough feedback to them to make this program where it's very useful and easy to use, because that's what we want. Because when you get a new dealer, a lot of times that's one of the things that Buffalo's new dealers don't know, how do I keep up with all this stuff? How do I do this and how do I do that? Well, if you have an easy program that keeps up with a lot of it for you, it makes life easier. As we know, right, Judy?
Or Judy.
All right, now from the convention, drum roll. Boom. This is the best news from the convention. No price increases in the foreseeable future. Yay! They're doing fine right now with the current structure. There are no price increases in the foreseeable future for this year. Now, like Dean said, he said, the reason he can say that in the foreseeable future is because he can't foresee the future. You know?
I thought I seen something in that center line,
it's
that
like
increase the
that.
price on something.
They increased prices on biodegradable hydraulic
There you go.
oil.
Okay, I knew there was a price.
That one product.
Okay.
But believe it or not, the oil companies this year so far have averaged between 5 and 8% across the board in all of their finished products. They've already had price increases. AMSOIL skipped it because I think, quite frankly, they raised it enough before to make up for it. So, but anyway, that's good for us. Stability in prices always works good for us. There was a time when I was first in AMSOIL, I've been doing this about, 22 years, something like that. Anyway, where we went, I don't know, 8 years without price change. Yeah, we used to go long times on price changes. Then all of a sudden we went through just a hellacious time of
He
price
just
changes.
went up on the additives last July, actually.
Yeah.
A year ago, July.
Yeah,
A year ago, July.
right. Okay, so did I miss anything in the convention?
Diesel concentrate's now called the diesel fuel injection cleaner.
Yeah, diesel fuel injection.
And a new bottle too.
New bottle,
Fancy box.
new looking package.
Woo!
Yeah, all of them are pretty.
Yeah, all the.
Yeah, we got new MP cans, new
Yes.
power foam cans. Has anybody tried the new degreaser yet?
No.
Okay, well, it's very expensive, so don't use too much of it.
Spray grease again?
Oh, we got a new spray grease, which is a really
I
good
got some of
product.
that. The lithium?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some of that.
So, anything else on the convention, Tony? Okay,
None of us